Everyone. My name is Angelica Campos. I'm the SSCCC Vice President of Communications, and today we're joined by Professor Jesus Valle from American River College. Thank you. We always love seeing our community colleges, and I'm excited to hear about all of the things you do. I'm sure everyone else is too. Jesus Valle is a professor of English at American River College in Sacramento, California. That's also part of the Los Rios Community College District. Jesus is also the director of the Native American Resource Center at American River College, and I'm really, really excited to hear more about what your center does, what you do, and the resources that are available for Native students. So with that, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and if you wanted to share a little bit more about your tribal affiliations? I know there were a few. I'll let you get started.
Okay, well, thank you for having me here. I'm going to start off in my traditional way. Enchimilios Chaniyahu, Itong Kitchem Alea. I use my language that way to greet all of you. Inepuhu ye matame Jesus Valle. And so I am a Yaqui individual, Yoeme. We call ourselves. I'm enrolled in my Yaqui band. I'm also Isleta Carrizo and Apache. I was born and raised in Arizona. I'm from the Southwest between Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And I reside here currently on Patwin land here. I want to acknowledge where I reside, the people of this land, the Patwin Wintu folks, and our college campus itself resides on the land of the Miwok, Maidu, and Nisenan in northern Sacramento. And so, we always like to use our language every day, to live our language in that way so that we can honor our ancestors and also put it forward for the future generations. There's power within our languages, and we encourage all of our Native students to always learn their languages, even if it's one word, right, a day, even if it's two words. Know your language, because the spirit comes along with that, and then the worldview and the framing. So that's a little bit about myself. I am a professor of English at American River College, and I also direct our Native American Resource Center. And along with that is, there's a lot more to it. There's the student, serving side of it. There's the institutional transformative change side of it. And then there's the community and tribal connective aspect to it. So, I know there's a few different questions you have to ask there, so I'm just going to kind of give it back to you.
All right. That's really exciting to hear, because when I was reading through about what the Native American Resource Center does, I did see that, services are provided for Native students from that area, from the nations that, American River College sits on, but also all Native students. And I think that's pretty rare across the state. And also, I'm also on Ramaytush Ohlone land over in San Francisco Bay Area. I just wanted to shout that out. But now moving on, tell us a little bit more about your role as director of the Native American Resource Center at American River College. How did the center come about, and were there any struggles you faced getting the program up and running?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I appreciate the question. Our center, so we've always had a large population of Native students, in the region. Sacramento, being a large, urban area, has an outsized proportion of American Indian, Native American students, both local and from tribes, individuals who've been, displaced and moved around. And so seeing that, I started teaching community college a long time ago, but I came to American River in about 2002. And immediately set about putting into place the Native American Student Support Program. And it was about 2.5 or 3 years later that we were able to establish an actual physical space, an actual center for the students. And I'm going to kind of just put it out there that in order to get sometimes these things going, in order to move the needle, you have to be strategic, you have to be politically savvy, and you have to be subversive in some ways. And Native people, we've always been adaptive and observant and taken advantage of opportunities to support our communities. And so with that said, I took my faculty office and I moved it to the second floor of the large classroom building. And then I was able to literally decide, I was like, we need a physical center. And so I just hung a sign outside the door, and that became our Native American Resource Center. And from there, we just built incrementally And so sometimes you have to do it as grassroots as that. And then the institution, right, will have to start to pay attention and will have to start to acknowledge the work and the need, right? And so that's how our center began. So it's been in operation, I believe, since about 2004 as a physical space, and kind of gradually took over a few more spaces. Um, we most recently moved to a different location after being in the same space for all those years. We decided that we needed to move into a different space because we wanted to be more central on campus. And I have a little, I don't know if you can see the picture here, but so that's what the new newly relocated center looks like. It's located in the student center, which is in the middle of campus, which is a really important location for it within the Unite Hub with all the other learning communities. And along with that, right, it's taken us, all these years, right, 19, 20 years to get to this point, but we now have established a separate office space, which is our tribal health office. And the tribal health office will be kind of managed and run and kind of co-created together with the Sacramento Native American Health Center and with some other organizations just to emphasize tribal health and wellness. And then along with that, we were also able to create our Native American Studies Library, which occupies yet a different physical space. And we feel that Native intellectualism, right, that we've always been intellectuals. We've always been critical thinkers. We've always been connected to the world around us and engaged in engineering, right, the environment and engineering cityscapes, right, pre-contact. And so intellectualism is part of who we are. And so we have these physical spaces that we're looking forward to as we come out of the pandemic, really relaunching in an entirely fresh and new and different way.
I think that, that's super important too. I know, at least at my own school, we have a lot of spaces for our students that started off grassroots, and it's especially important eventually when you get, that institutional support. You just got to keep doing what you got to do, like with your center, building that community, building up those resources until you can get that institutional support. So yeah, moving on, we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual resources. Sorry again if you hear any construction in the background, a little unavoidable. Um, so with that, here's your third question. I'll kind of break it up for you. What resources are available for Native students through the Native American Resource Center? And are there any highlights you would like to share that you find especially helpful for Native students?
Yeah, sure. Going back over the years, we've always emphasized like a scale and structure approach, and so having the physical space is one aspect of it, but you have a core client group that is going to be able to, even pre-pandemic, 20 or 30 students who are going to be on campus, at different time slots. So you have to serve those students in those ways and provide a space for them to build community, to use computers, to print. Those students also have their Native American Student Union meetings there together. We would have our tutoring sessions in there. That's how folks got through statistics. We'd have tutors on site. We'd also have our small little kitchen and folks be able to come in and have their lunch and connect. My faculty office has always been, the model was that the faculty office is embedded within the space of the center. And it's a good model because there's literally no barrier, no door between the Native student coming in and the Native faculty, right? And that's really important, the connection between a faculty member who's reflective of that affinity or that community and the students from that community being able to access that faculty member. We have an embedded, dedicated, counselor for the Native American Resource Center, a counselor whose part of the load is to give academic counseling and everything else that goes along, academic advising, academic planning, transfer planning, pathway planning, all of that embedded into the program. We have, when we have our student help there, we have on-site scholarship planning and advising over the long term. So what it would be like, we start to mentor folks in scholarships, starting in the fall through scholarship application and transfer planning. And then, through my networking and connections, connect them to many of the the large, funders, the Cobell and the American Indian Scholarship Fund and all these other wonderful people who are out there looking for good students to fund. And so it's about being connected, right? It's about being present. And I think that, just coming in, we would have large community gatherings, we'd have bingo nights, and we would have the Native Peer Advisors Corps, which we created, which was a subset of student ambassadors, just of Native students, who would then do leadership training and kind of, building up their own skills and abilities to then become the mentors for the next wave. So we had that going on. Again, the pandemic shifted our modality. So when the pandemic hit, what we did is shifted to a case management approach. And so in this way, we do a lot of texting to the Native student cohort. We do a lot of outreach and phone call. We still do remote events. We're looking to do, for instance, in January upcoming, we're going to do a Bringing Back the Fire event in person to campus and have elders come and speak. It's going to be a nighttime evening event, and Make Our Sacred Fire, have elders come speak and share words and come sing, and other guests, and invite the entire community to come support the Native students in that way. And then we're looking at doing in-person, social distant events outdoors at parks or on campus throughout the semester next term, together with the client focused emphasis. And so, this is good. I want to break this up into chunks because I feel like there's a lot to cover and we have a good space of time. But, the resource for Native students, we have a summer read. We bought a bunch of copies of Tommy Orange's book. They're there and got those physical copies out to the students so that they can kind of keep the mind going on something over the summertime. And much more, right, as the program continues to evolve.
I am so embarrassed again.
It's
But
okay.
let me know if you can't hear me at all. So for the next question, do you have any ideas or suggestions on how the SSCCC, the community college system, California community college system, can better serve and engage with Native students in the state?
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas in that area. And I want to backtrack a little bit again to talk a little bit about structure and system and scale, because I think that, the Student Senate statewide is really kind of a structural backbone. So a couple of years ago, the American River College campus commissioned a series of disproportionate impact reports. And these worked their way through various affinities. And so Native American, American Indian was part of the first iteration of the DI report, disproportionate impact report. And so a lot of people had some, input into that. It generated a large report. What we really figured out is we did a survey instrument to our Native students, and we really figured out what were some of the key areas that were affecting Native student success, right? And then we looked at that against African American student success and Latinx student success. And so we were able to pull out these commonalities and some important differences, right? And so for us, it really was the fact that there's an institutional relationship, right, between the institution and tribal nations, first and foremost, local tribal nations. And from that, we also realized we needed to hire a tribal liaison who was Native to be the person, right, in between, communicating on a constant basis, right? So the outward facing, how would you say, at the forefront of the sovereignty frame. So we also instituted the sovereignty frame, right? I'll get to that in a moment. So with the DI report, we found that Native students and DI students overall, really wanted and needed very clear directions in classes. They wanted very good, positive relationships with their instructors. Those are very, very, very high, right, on the list. And so you ask what, the statewide Student Senate can kind of look at. Well, continued kind of policy push or best practices or implementation, right, of emphasis from the student side in those areas across the state. We also found, of course, money and finances were ranked pretty high on the list as well in terms of student need and what students needed, but not as high, right? As you would think, and not as high as clear instructions and directions from instructors and relationship and connection positivity. And we know there's a lot of, especially towards indigenous people, Native American, there's so much embedded anti-tribalism, right? In addition to racism. There's both of those things going on. And so an outgrowth of the report, again, I'm saying this all because I think that the statewide student senate can really benefit from putting these ideas on the radar screen, right? Would be for a statewide shift to a sovereignty frame. And what the sovereignty frame really means is that Native American people have been raced. That is, we've been included in a racialized bucket, but we are not races. We are nations, right? And we're sovereign nations that we belong to, and each nation, right, has a unique historical and legal and political relationship to the state of California and to the federal government. And so it's a huge shift because all this time, within all of the data collection statewide, within all of the consideration of marketing, within all of the consideration of outreach, it's just a list of races, Native American, right? That's completely wrong, completely monolithic, right? Getting us out of the race bucket, right, into the sovereignty frame completely changes the questions that the student senate statewide should ask, right, in terms of relationship to tribal nations. So there's a lot that goes along with that, you know, the recommendation statewide to commission DI reports, in particular, what is the state of, you know, political relationship between your campus and local Native nations. And so before I missed this, because I have a list of notes, repatriation, right, at the statewide level is also a very important issue, and it ties into the sovereignty frame and Native student success. And so, you know, recently, for instance, we found that our American River College institutionally has an aggregation of genocide items, baskets, mortars, arrows, human remains, and so forth, that have been held, right, since the inception of the college in the 1950s. And so there are laws, federal NAGPRA, Native American Protection Repatriation Graves Act, and also the Cal NAGPRA that goes along with it. And so these are legal requirements that the California Statewide Student Senate can bring to the forefront of college administrations across the state. Because I would wager that practically none of the campuses are in compliance with California or federal NAGPRA in terms of human remains, funerary remains, and other objects that the tribes have been looking to bring these items home. And so we're actually at American River College in the process of hiring a NAGPRA specialist just to work on the repatriation issue in partnership with other areas and departments on the campus to move the process forward. So there's a lot. So we have the center, we have the library, we have the tribal health office, we have our tribal liaison, we have a repatriation process, we have data to back up what we're doing. You know, we're kind of firing on all pistons, which is a very good thing, you know, for us to do because there's so much important work always to be done.
I think especially like in the state of California with like the history we have, I know there are especially a lot of tribes or niche and nations that are not that were not recognized or
Mm-hmm.
lost, you know, recognition from the federal and even the state government. I know there's a lot of movements to like at least right now in the state of California to push for like what you said, the repatriation and then also that sovereignty mind frame set. I know within the SSCCC, we worked last year on our land acknowledgement, but that, you know, we took a pause on that because there were like a lot of the steps you brought up. There was a lot of things we needed to do to build a more, how you say, authentic and more solid relationship. One of them that we did take was the tribal liaison. I know that's just one step we're taking. One out of many steps that we can take to begin that building that authentic relationship, like you said, with tribal nations, with, you know, our native students, And then even, and this is such a good thing that you brought up the repatriation. I'm hearing a lot about clear instructions from faculty. I think that's something all students face or struggle with, but especially what I'm hearing is Native students. Centers, those are super important. We have a lot of work to do. Um, and we're right in the thick of our resolution season within the SSCCC, where students across the state, SSCCC student senate members, they're all looking to write resolutions to make effective change for students. So these are really good ideas to kind of have floating around there, and hopefully someone can take that up. It'd be really interesting to see Native students, Indigenous students across the state also get involved in that process.
Yeah,
Um,
to add to that, so I've been meeting with the state chancellor's office, and so we've had some really good interactions and planning, particularly, and some monies and funds through their through their publicity marketing and outreach, right? And so Dr. Jolie Proudfit, who's at the Sovereignty Center at San Marcos, CSUS San Marcos, we meet with her regularly. Essentially, our initiative at the statewide level has contracted with her organization to create a statewide kind of outreach and marketing push. So you may be seeing billboards. That's what we're planning on in critical areas. You're going to see print media. You're going to see web media. You're going to see kind of native faces, American Indian faces represented in the I can go to college, I can afford college websites, also in CCC Apply, all of that. And so as a heads up, we need Native students across the state to kind of be aware that this is happening, because Dr. Profit always needs Native students to model, to be in all of the outreach publication materials. But also as part of that work, part of that work will be to create a toolkit and template for land acknowledgement at all of the colleges throughout the state, kind of a map of areas on which campuses sit or reside on different Native nations' land. So there's good things coming, but it's going to take a lot of pieces intersecting, right, from the student side as well, to understand that this is happening, so it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I think that, to elaborate on that and thinking about, all of the different structures and changes that can happen, really pushing for the tribal liaison at each campus, I think is critical and key for the statewide student senate to look at. That's a real piece that can happen from that direction. We also need a lot of direct support for Native students, like book vouchers that campuses can give, the creation of community, physical space that campuses can dedicate. It doesn't have to be large, but it just has to be physical space with some staffing and Native people involved in the process. Encouraging the system statewide to hire Native people, right? And so the model of cluster hires is a good one, to where, you create a critical mass. And so you realize we're going to hire a Native student outreach person, a Native tribal liaison, and a Native student help all at the same time. And then I also had created in the last 2 years an Applied Allies to Tribal Citizens professional development program that we implemented at American River College. So it was a year-long sequence where faculty, staff, and administration could sign up for, and then take a year, and they would spend the fall in curriculum with me, meeting throughout October, five Fridays, and it was all in Canvas with a curriculum, and really bring folks along in a journey of allyship to tribal citizens, and then implementing mini projects in the springtime based on the allyship. And so this really emphasized settler colonial awareness of settler colonial identity across all racial groups, right? Because you have tribal citizens and then everyone else, right? So it's a real nuanced and complex understanding of identity and self among the practitioners, and also the manifestations of allyship, right? And all the different manifestations of allyship, I should say.
Thank you for that, Jesus. I think one issue I see that arises for students and on campuses potentially is, uh, oh, let me rephrase. I'm so sorry. I think something that I see that pops up on some campuses, college campuses, is that some people say, oh, there isn't a need for it because we don't hear anything from students or native students or, insert any group here, but for this purpose, use native students. There are campuses that claim that, but that's not necessarily true. Maybe you don't hear from students, but maybe, colleges, institutions aren't providing opportunities for those students to, voice those needs, voice those concerns. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah,
um,
that you bring up a good point because there has been data genocide occurring. And so data genocide is when the institution excludes small affinity groups because they say the number, the N in the data collection is too small. Pretty much is saying you're just simply don't matter, right? And so part of our DI report was to look at qualitative data and to gather the voices and to make voices meaningful, right? Despite, so if we have we typically have about 150 Native American students at American River College, right? And district-wide in Los Rios, we'd probably have about 900 or so, right? And so statistically, that's out of, if you're looking at, again, at American River, you have 150 Native students, but you have, thousands and thousands of students of this group or thousands and thousands of this group. The administration, the great temptation is you want to get your money's worth, right? And so if we're going to put resources, we want, to elevate these thousands of students. But what is not understood, right? What is unique here is that with a tribal nation, let's say I have two students from a small tribal nation, I could have the entirety of their graduating high school class at American River College. I have the entirety of their potential and future, right? And what they're pushing forward. So proportionately, these students matter a great deal because they represent proportionately for their tribe, for their nation. And so we're talking about the entire futures of tribal peoples here, and it's of great importance. And so the data genocide, there has to be an awareness brought across the state to the fact that you, A, cannot just lump Native Americans, you have to disaggregate by tribe, right? You have to have a pull-down menu built in or a write-in. What is your tribe? Because you need to be able to see who's from local tribes, who's from tribes in the Southwest, who's from this other region, and then to connect those students to their tribes if they're not connected, but also to connect the education and support departments of those tribes to the students. So there's a lot of real fine-tuning that has to go into it.
all right, we're about to run out of time. Again, thank you again, Jesus. I wanted to leave a little room for questions, maybe one or two questions, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
If not, it was also really great to hear from you. Are there any questions at this moment from anyone watching online right now? I'll give it one more second. All right, I'm not hearing any. Again, we just concluded our live with Jesus Valle, professor at American River College and director of the ARC, Native American Resource Center. Thank you again for joining us. It's always really good to hear from you. I think you presented to the you did present to the SSCCC last year during one of our trainings or meetings. It's always really good to hear from you, and hopefully we can continue, this relationship that, our organization, our students, my fellow students, are building with you. So with that, I'm going to end the live. I just wanted to highlight for everyone here that today is Giving Tuesday. We're fundraising for our scholarship for students that are system impacted. And I think that is pretty relevant too to Native students because again, everyone is impacted. All groups of people, all people of color in the state, in the country, are affected by police brutality, affected by our system, our criminal justice system. So again, you can find more information down below at our account. So just go back to our feed, our Instagram feed, and you can find a little bit more information about how to share, how to donate, and more about our scholarship fund. Again, thank you, Jesus, and thank you,
Yeah, thank you
everyone, for
very much.
being here.
Okay,
Have a good
take
day.
care. Mhm.